So we're going to continue reviewing some equation solving skills. Here we're looking specifically at proportions. So ratio equals a ratio. Um, so what we're going to use here for the most part is our cross product property, which says that if I have a ratio A over B, that looks a little bit like a 9, let's fix that, A over B, and it is equal to a ratio C over D, I can multiply across the diagonal and set those products equal to each other. Okay, so that would mean I could cross multiply here and I could have AD equals BC. Okay, so we want to go ahead and apply this to these problems down here, cross multiplying. All right, so the first one that we're going to go ahead and do is 20 divided by 5x equals 70 divided by 45. So we're going to go ahead and cross multiply to start. So we're going to start with 20 times 45, which is 900, equals, and then we're going to do 70 times 5x. So 70 times 5x, which is going to be 350x. Now we have an equation like we're used to seeing, so we're just going to go ahead and divide both sides by 350. So we're going to take 900 divided by 350, and we're going to end up with a decimal if we put this into our calculator using division rather than a fraction. So when you put this in your calculator, you'll probably get a number about 2.5714, and it'll continue on for a while. If we don't have to round, we don't want to. So if you get a decimal like 2.5, it's okay to write your answer as 2.5. But if you get a decimal like this, where it goes on for a long time, we don't want to round it. We would like to write the exact value, which means we're going to write it as a fraction instead of a decimal. So if on your calculator you can convert to a fraction, that's awesome. Go ahead and do that. But we're going to go ahead and simplify this by hand here just for this first time. So when we're simplifying a fraction, we simply want to find a common factor, divide it out to reduce. So right now I can look at these and I can say, all right, they're both divisible by 10. So 900 divided by 10, we're going to get 90. 350 divided by 10, we're going to get 35. All right, and over here, this canceled out to 1. We're left with just x. All right, but there we can continue to simplify, right? So you can do a simplification in one step, or you can do it in multiple steps. Here we're doing it in 2 steps because we're not done. Both of these are still divisible by 5. So we'll simplify that. We'll get 18 over 7. And then at this point, 18 and 7 don't have any common factors, so we are done. And that is our final answer. Okay, so we're going to continue this way and work on solving some more difficult proportions. So whenever we have a proportion where we have a polynomial larger than a monomial, like we do here in the denominator of our first ratio in this proportion, you want to group it using parentheses so that when we do our cross multiplication, you don't forget to distribute because we're going to have to distribute. Another tip for this is that anytime you have an integer on one side or something that is not a fraction, you can always turn it into a fraction by simply putting it over 1 so that we can easily do our cross multiplication. So I'm going to cross multiply here. 3x times 1 is just 3x. And then 4 times x minus 10, we're just going to write as 4 times the quantity x minus 10, right? So these parentheses are very important because 4 doesn't just get multiplied to the x, it gets multiplied to that minus 10 part as well, or negative 10. So we're going to solve. Again, solving, we simplify first by distributing. So I have 3x equals 4x minus 40. Okay, we're going to move all of our variables to one side. And I'm going to get negative x equals negative 40. And just keep in mind, a negative x is really a negative 1x. So I have one more step, which is to divide both sides by negative 1 to find that x equals 40. Last example. Now I have two expressions in here in this equation that are not monomials. So I'm going to want to group them. So anytime you have addition or subtraction in here, you're going to want to group those so you make sure to distribute later. Now we can cross multiply. So we have 10 times the quantity 2x minus 5. And then we have 15 times the quantity 5x minus 10. All right, and we're going to want to distribute and make sure that we are being very careful about that. Okay, so first distribution, we're going to end up with 20x minus 50. And then second distribution, we're going to end up with 75x minus 150. Okay, now we want to go ahead and solve. So I'm going to subtract 75x from both sides because I like to put my x on the left-hand side because that's where it needs to be for my final solution. And we're going to end up with negative 55x minus 50 equals negative 150. Go ahead and add 50 to both sides. We'll get negative 55x equals 100, negative 100. And then we want to go ahead and divide both sides by negative 55. And again, this is going to give us a fraction, and that's okay. This is going to give us a fraction with a repeating decimal if we convert it to decimal form. So because of that, we want to leave it a fraction, right? We don't want to round. So we're going to have x equals, and when we simplify this, we will have 20 over 11.